Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we're back with another Sword Art Online Variant Showdown video. And today I wanted to go over, kind of my rankings of units, the SSR units at the very least, that are available in-game right now as of the second day of launch. But before we get into that, I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that over here on the Challenge tab, there are actually extra missions, and once you complete all of them, you will then get a free copy of this red Silica, who can be really pretty useful if you're running a Kirito team, which most people are. So make sure that you've checked this tab, you're completing all these missions, and then tomorrow, if you have done them all, and you've logged in for all 3 days, you will then automatically get this free Silica, who's an SSR unit. Obviously, I haven't used her, so I don't know how good she is. But at least we know that we can get another free SSR alongside, the free Kirito and the free Asuna. So that's good. But with that out of the way, let's move on to the actual website with the character information. Alright, so we're on the appmedia.jp for Variant Showdown's website, and here is their tier list ranking for the current SSR units, minus that Silica that we don't have access to quite yet. So, they have ranked Kirito as SS rank, which I agree with. He should be everyone's re-roll target. He is one of the strongest characters in the game. His skills are really good. 1,000 damage with your rush gauge increase for 5, which is that gives you the most percentage of rush gauge, which is important when you're fighting Gleam Eyes, because you really want to get that fever going, you want to get that burst going to get maximum damage so you can build up your ult faster. So having a level 5 for that is pretty good. The only downside is it's a 10-second cooldown, but it is a very powerful skill. It can also burn the enemy, so it's pretty worth it to let it be a 10-second cooldown. His second skill is just a basic fire attack for 400 damage with only a 2 rush value, but it's only a 4-second cooldown, so that's much more useful. His passive skill, when HP is 100% or more, technically, you get an extra STR plus 20%, which means that if you manage to not be hit, you will do a lot more damage. And then when you switch, you get a 10% cooldown on your skills. Very good. And then his actual switch effects when switching, skill cooldown minus 10%, and gives automatic HP recovery for him, which will allow you to maybe bump yourself back up to 100% HP, therefore proccing your extra 20% strength right here. So he is a very useful unit who can do a lot of damage, who can heal himself, and do extra damage when he's at full HP. So he is by far, alongside giving away a free full awakened copy of his ability card, should be everyone's #1 target for rerolling. Now they've also ranked Silica as the SS rank, which I don't particularly agree with. I would have dropped her down to S rank personally, but I can see their reasoning. She is a healer, recover 20% HP for self and the replacement party, and then when HP is 100% or more, you get strength for 5% for everyone. So she is a dedicated support who is also green. And then, her skills are 700 damage with 3s and 12 seconds, and 600 damage for 3 and 12 seconds. So that's why I would have ranked her down. The rush values are pretty middle, the cooldowns are long, and they're not, the most power in the world. So if you're trying to combo with her, swapping out, it's going to take a little bit longer to get her active because of such a long cooldown rate. Like, Kirito has 1,000 damage with a 5 rush, and he has 10 seconds. So that's why I would have ranked her down lower. She is a healer and support, which is good. And then her switch effect also gives the party STR plus 15%, and if you do a perfect switch, it's 25%. So she does kind of make up for this long cooldown with just additional buffs to damage. So I still, when you're trying to really combo in for full rush value, having long cooldowns and middle to low rush values is not the greatest thing in the world. So I would have put her down here. Leafa is a contender. I on stream I called her one of the worst units in the game, and maybe I don't particularly feel that way now, mainly because I didn't remember what she did for the most part. But when switching, you get 10% strength for 10 seconds, and then a perfect switch gives 20% strength and a rush plus 5% increase. Her skills, 1,000 damage, 5, 8 seconds, right? So Kirito was 1,000 damage, 5, and 10 seconds, but he also gives the burning effect. And then her second skill, 600 power with a rush value of 2 for 7 seconds. So she can do very good damage in a short span of time. She is more of a DPS than Green Silica would be. Her other switch effects are skill cooldowns, and her perfect switch power goes up by 15%. So she can be a competent green DPS if you need her to be. Liz right here is excellent support for Kirito, because she is also fire, she's also red, she also gives fire attribute to the replacement target, so whoever you switch her out for, and increases the fire attribute skill power of the target by 5%, which means if you have her up front, you use her skills, then you swap her out for Kirito, he's going to get an extra 5% firepower. So you're just powering him up even more, and if he has, full HP, then that's, stacking on top of his 20% strength from his passive. So you're allowing Kirito to do just that much more damage. Her skills, 1100 damage with stun, 4, and a 15-second cooldown. So make no mistake, she can put out some damage with this skill, maybe stun the enemy, but it's going to take a while before you can use it again. And then her second skill, 600 power, which is fairly good. 2 rush value though, so it's pretty low, and a 7-second cooldown. So she can give a lot of power to Kirito, she can do a lot of power herself, but she's going to have a long cooldown. But it's kind of offset by her switch powers, which are cooldown reduction. So 10% when doing just a normal switch, and 10% to the whole party when you do a perfect switch. So that is pretty important. If you can give 10% cooldowns to everybody, then you can cool down Kirito's skill, you can cool down her skill, you can cool down the other person. So she's fairly good with Kirito. And if you don't have Kirito, then technically you can give fire attribute power to a non-fire unit. So blue Asuna or green Leafa, you can give them a little bit of fire damage and let them do just a little bit more damage to greens. So, or you can give a little bit of type advantage to a blue Asuna for green units, green enemies. So that's pretty good. Speaking of blue Asuna, she is a tank. She has a lot of defense, but not too much attack. And she's kind of difficult to use, because when HP is 100% or more, rush gauge increase amount plus 20%, and strength plus 5% for the whole party. But as soon as you're not at 100 HP, you lose all of her passive, and her attack stat then is not that great. She has a long cooldown for both skills. 700 power with a rush value of 5, 16 seconds, 10 seconds for 2, and 600. That's not it. That's not what you're really looking for. Her switch effect, rush gauge plus 20%, and the whole party's STR plus 5%. This is killer for teams that are trying to fast combo and do burst damage. This is not good. So Asuna, honestly, should not be a primary focus. Even if you pull her, you're probably better off using the free-to-play Asuna. Even though this one has better stats, the other free-to-play one is, in my opinion, better than her. Then we go down to the blue Kirito, who, is the free starter unit, so obviously he's not going to be the best thing in the world. But, if it's what you got, it's what you got. You need a blue unit, that's a blue unit. But there's also, the other Asuna. So he stacks his strength when he switches out. So stacks the 3 times for 20 seconds, and then perfect switching gives him 10%, which you would think is good, but his skills, his stats are just not the greatest thing in the world. So it's unfortunate. His cooldowns are okay. Physical water damage, 600 power, grants freeze. I haven't really had that happen to me. So rush value of 3 for 9, 800 power, rush value of 2, which is pretty bad for, the power skill, right? And a 10-second cooldown. So remember, Fire Kirito has 1,000 power, a 5 value, and 10-second cooldown. That's why you're shooting for him. And then his actual switch effects are switch cool time, 5% reduction, so it allows you to cycle characters faster. And then when you're doing a perfect switch, you get a skill cooldown reduction for him. So it'll cut these down just a little bit. But also not who you want to be running unless you have no other option. And then the free-to-play Asuna from Progressive that everyone gets for free because of the login bonus. So she is actually fairly good. So her strength increases up to 15% as your remaining HP increases. So the higher your HP, the more damage you do, and then the lower you go, the less damage you will do. It's good, for starting out, especially if you're running probably her and Silica and Kirito, because Silica will be able to heal both of you, therefore keeping her strength up, keeping Kirito's strength up. So it's a really good way to top up the team. And then her skills, 900 power with a rush value of 4 and 8 seconds, is fairly good. Fairly good. And then this 600 power for a rush value of 2 with a 10-second cooldown, not as good, unfortunately. It has a longer cooldown with less power and less rush, so that's not what you're really looking for either, but she is still a pretty solid unit for starting people, which, this game has been out for a day and a half, so everyone's a starting person. Her switch effects, when switching, gets extra vitality, and then a perfect switch gives herself HP recovery, making her a little bit self-sufficient for her passive as well, just like Kirito. So I would move Silica down just a tad, like she would be splitting S and double S, and I would put Liz also splitting that if you're running Kirito. If you're not running Kirito, she would remain in S rank. This Asuna, I would actually probably drop down to A rank, just because she's difficult to use and her stats aren't the greatest and her skills are, long cooldowns. So that is my breakdown of the current SSR units that are available. Like I said, the other Silica that they mentioned up here is not available yet, so I haven't been able to use her. But that's my individual going over the units. So let me know if this helped you guys out a bit and made you learn a few more things about your units. But that's it for me, guys. Take it easy, and I'll see you later.